everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And so, a big part of guesting on podcasts is that, of course, you want to get leads. You have a lead magnet that you share, but people don't just say yes and then sign up for your programs, right? It takes a little bit of time. And so today I'm excited to talk about copy and messaging because it's such a crucial part of converting and attracting clients. And so I have a copywriter and messaging strategist, Hailey Krajewski, with me today, who is such a sweet woman, such a gem, and so talented. So I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here and chat with you today, Lindsay. So I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I feel like sometimes people have the wrong misconceptions. So they're like, oh, I'm getting leads on my list. They're going to be so hot for what I have to give them, and they're going to check me out and they're going to sign up for XYZ. And that doesn't obviously happen. They need to trust you first. So, can you kind of dive into how we should set those expectations and what crucial step we're missing?
Yes, definitely. I love that you say that because so often, we're building our list and that's really important, but then maybe people aren't converting like we thought they were, or they're like engaging but not actually buying. And the end goal is to get them to buy, right? And so the big thing is like we have to make sure that we're nurturing them as soon as they're coming onto your list, whether that's through your podcast or your lead magnet or whatever it is. That's the warmest that lead is ever going to be. So if we can capture them and continue to nurture them from the very start, not in 3 days from now or 5 days or a week from now, like right away. That's where it's really important to be showing up in their inbox, but also if you're on social or wherever you are, to be speaking that message to that one person. So I can go into that in a little bit more detail if you want to, but I think so often, like you said, people are coming on our list, but they're not converting. And so we start from square one. It's like maybe it's my offer. Maybe
I
I
know.
put out more content. Maybe I need to do this. But like 99% of the time, it's just how you're positioning it. It's just your messaging. And it's that they're not sure that what you're doing, they're not clear that what you're doing is the exact next step or that exact solution for them.
And that's really good to know because I find sometimes as well, just to kind of get the bigger picture here, is when guests are on a podcast, they're talking about something specific. And sometimes the lead magnet, when they go to the landing page and then they start getting emails, like there's a slight disconnect. So it's so important to have that messaging dialed in from start to finish. It's not just copy for emails, it's not just copy for a landing page. Like it really does impact your whole entire business and how you're attracting leads. So let's take a step back before I do want to dive into, you know, some of the nitty gritty for nurturing your leads when they come into your CRM. But I just want to kind of take a wider view on messaging and why it's so important. And some messaging, sometimes I think people kind of have this ethereal view of like what it is.
Definitely. So your messaging is really the the bridge between your offer and the people who need it, right? So your messaging has to show them that your offer is the solution to the problem that they have right now. Because so often we're, saying things that we want to say or that we feel are important to us. We're not actually talking to the thing that's important to them right now. And that is a really, really big part of it, right? You have to have that message match your market, match your audience so that it resonates with them. And I like to explain it in the way that your message is really your communication around what you're offering and how you can help. And it has to match the market's desire. It has to solve a specific problem and create a specific outcome in really simple, clear ways. Because I think that so often maybe we talk with like our industry jargon or we're saying the things that we're so used to saying, but we're not actually using the language of the customer. And so for me, what I find really important with my clients or my own writing is that I'm really diving in to understand who that ideal client is, and talking to them, asking them questions like, why are what's your biggest struggle? What's happening right now in your life or business that led you here? Like if if there was nothing standing in your way, what would be that like dream result? Just asking them questions and really digging deep into it, but then listening and taking notes on how they're explaining it and what they're talking about. And then going even one step further is I just was talking in my group about this, is so often we get afraid to hone in too much, right? To talk to like one person or narrow in our niche so much that we might like repel people that want to pay us. And I'm sure maybe you've felt that before or you've heard that before. I know I've felt that. I'm even working on it right now because I'm doing it for my clients and it's working. So why am I not doing it myself, right? I think we get so caught in this like mindset loop that we're going to repel people. But I had someone in my group the other day say, she's like, exactly this. She goes, I was listening to what you were saying. I honed it even more. She's like, I put my message out there. She had instantly two new clients, two new people reach out to her that were actually not even that ideal person, but someone else that was like, wow, I want this. I need this. Like it just instantly resonated, even though it wasn't for them specifically. So it goes to show that even though you might be talking to one person, you're still going to pull in the people that it feels right to them. You're just going to repel the wrong ones, the ones that aren't going to get results in your program, anyways, right? I think we've all maybe had those clients where you probably shouldn't have said yes because they're not the right fit. So when you have your messaging in place and it's really strong, it's going to pull in the right fit people and maybe repel the ones that are not the right fit, the ones that are not going to get the best results in your program. Is that feeling
Yeah,
aligned with my
that's
two
so
colors?
true. And yeah, and I think sometimes there is confusion on like what makes a good sales page and or there's a specific formula. Sometimes we try to be too clever. So should we do you feel like the industry is changing in what sales pages are, whether it's a lead magnet or a product, in that we need to like pare it down? Are we
So
too wordy? Like, what are we doing wrong? I guess is what I'm asking here.
definitely, I know I always get this question like, how long should my sales page
I
be?
know.
And my answer, which not a lot of people like, is as long as it needs to be. And I say that because as long, again, it's just going back to how you are positioning your offer. And so I tend to say if it's a higher ticket priced offer, like if it's over $1,000, I do more of a long form sales page because you're going to have people that are fact finders and they need to know every single thing about what's in your offer. They need to know every detail. They need to see the testimonials. They need to know everything. You're going to also have the people that are just going to skim it and say, yep, I'm in or no, I'm out, right? And so while probably only 20% of your copy is actually read, that 20% has to be really good. Um, and so focusing on things like your headlines, your subheadlines, the bolded text, like you want to lead people through that sales page, and they should be able to know exactly what your offer is, how it's going to solve their problem, and where to buy, like just by reading those headlines, subheadlines, and bolded text. Like I always say, if somebody can just read that and it tells the story by itself, that's a good sales page.
That is a great tip. Like, I know to break things up and, gear it to some of the skimmers, but that's a good exercise to do on any sales page that you have is to skim it and look at those headlines and subheadlines. And do you understand the crux of the offer and who it's for just within that alone? I think that is very telling.
Yes, definitely. Because so often I always say your messaging is so important. So you should always design, like bring in the design after you have the words. But when you have a powerful, like really good design with good copy, it can be so powerful together because it's also like you can have the most beautiful design, but if the words aren't good, it's not going to convert. And sometimes if you have really great words, but it's like there's nothing that's moving the eye throughout the page. There's nothing, you know, that's visually appealing,
Yeah,
then it's not going to be as powerful either. So that's why I like to say when they both are working together, it's really powerful.
that's so cool. And obviously, landing pages for lead magnets are shorter by nature. And
Yes.
it's so funny. Some people are like, just have the image of the thing and like two sentences, and it's converting like crazy. And some are like, you need to put more copy, you need to do this. It's like, I guess it's all in the testing. But do you have a preference for landing pages or any tips for lead magnets? Sorry.
Yes. Well, I would say if it's working and you only have a little bit, go with it. That little bit is probably really strong. That's all they need. Or maybe whatever got them to get there was really strong. So if it was an email that sent them there, if it was a social post that sent them there, right? There had to be somewhere where the messaging was strong enough in order for them to say, yes, I want this, I need this. Because a lot of times I see lead magnets or landing pages that they're not really focusing on the problem. It's not telling me what I'm getting if I'm going to download that. And nowadays, because I think there's so much out there and so much saturation and so much AI, which I love AI, I use it every day. But now that I also use it every day, I can tell what's AI and what's human, right? So making sure that your lead magnet and your landing page is specific to how's it going to solve a problem for me? Because they're going to want to know instantly what's in it for me. So typically, landing pages for me are much shorter because I write by nature, things get a little bit lengthier for me. Um, but if it's working, I mean, some of my clients, yeah, we just have a simple form and it works really well for them.
Great. Awesome. So let's go back then to now talk about the nurture campaign, if you will. Um, Obviously, we want to warm up that lead once they get into our list. Do you, I guess, what is your philosophy when it comes to that? Because there is conflicting stories like hit them hard every day for 5 days, and some are like, an indoctrination sequence. Like there is conflicting information out there. What is your approach?
Definitely. So the first couple of days, like the first few days, like as someone downloads your lead magnet, they should be getting an email right away. I always say too, and again, this is preference. Some people say it different. This is what I believe and what I've seen as works is when they put in their name and email rather than giving them that right away, like it goes to a thank you page, but they don't actually get the download, right? They have to go to their inbox first. So they should get that email right away that gives them the delivery. And then I have been doing longer sequences, um, but giving them the chance to work with me throughout, right? leading them to your signature offer throughout. But if you can set up a longer nurture sequence, it's more hands off for you. You are nurturing them without having to do anything, right? So, what I like to do for my clients is we do the hard work up front. We make sure we understand who the client is we're talking to, what's the problem we're solving, and then how are we going to get them from point A to point B, right? From your lead magnet to the sale on repeat. And so I like helping my clients set up more of that evergreen sales system where they're coming in from the lead, we're nurturing them all the way to the sale. And so in your nurture sequence, so often a lot of times people are educating, 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 or they're giving so much that either it's overwhelming or if it's great, I know all this stuff, why do I need to work with you now? Right? So instead of trying to solve the problem and teach what to do, it's important to teach how to think about solving the problem that's keeping them from what they want and how to think about a way to get out of the problem, right? So, more of how to think about it differently than how to teach what to do. Because then that gets them thinking, oh, well, I need to work with her now so that I can get the solve,
That's
right?
so interesting. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it though. Can you give an example?
Yes, yes. So it's just kind of shifting in their thinking. Like, what's that missing piece? So a lot of times we're like, okay, you need to, sometimes I'm so bad at on the spot examples, but like telling them exactly what they need to do. So for their headlines, maybe I'm teaching them exactly how to write a headline. Instead, I should be telling them how to think about it, right? Like, what does your headline need to do in order to be successful, rather than me showing you how to write one?
Oh,
And that might be a bad example. But it's really just shifting the thought process. So like instead of, sometimes we give 5 steps to do X, Y, Z. Well, maybe those 5 steps aren't like do this, do this, do this. It's more about how to, um, like, this is what's keeping you stuck. Instead, try thinking about it this way. So it's just you're not giving them everything, but you're showing them that the next step they need is to work with you.
that's
It's
so powerful, Haley.
kind of giving more of that like urgency around
Yeah.
how they can solve that problem. Is that making more
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, I know. As you're saying it, I'm like thinking of course, naturally about my own lead magnets. And what I give and don't give. And so basically, as an example, I guess there's five, mistakes that podcast guests make, blah, 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 blah. And instead of giving them the information, it's like, oh, think about your interview questions differently. They need to have this element, that element. Here's the
Yeah.
approach you might want to think about
Yes.
versus like the nitty gritty.
Yes. Thank you. See, that was such a great example.
Okay, good.
Yes, definitely.
I like
Uh,
that because you're not giving them the nuts and bolts, but you're giving them the concept and the approach and the
yes,
strategy, but not, yeah, the nuts and bolts and how to. That makes total sense.
100%. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Sometimes when I'm like on the spot examples, I'm like, I've had so many, but
I
then
know.
it comes to it and it just my mind goes blank. So that is exactly right. We're just shifting the way that we're talking about it and how they're thinking about it.
That makes a huge difference because like you said, they're reading all that stuff and they're like, okay, I can do this on my own. Or they are overwhelmed. Whereas if you're planting the seed, oh, by the way, I do this.
Yep.
Um, so because I think this is what we get stuck on as well as marketers is either selling too hard right out of the gate and be like, P.S., book a call with me today. Or we don't do anything and just hope they reach out. So when you are nurturing, whether it's 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, do you leave the sales sequence to the end or do you sell throughout? Or like,
So I,
how do we handle that properly?
yes, I sell throughout. And so I think it's sometimes I feel that it can be like a limiting belief almost. I know that's going deep, but like, why shouldn't we sell right away, right? Our
Yeah.
lead is warm. They want what we have. So
Yeah.
why are we holding back? So typically in the first email, I don't. It's like, here you go, use this, like let me know how it gets results. I try to also throughout the nurture sequence engage with the audience. I want to know more about them, right? I want them to engage in conversation. I want them to click. I want them to just really interact with me because it also teaches them when I do make that sale, they're more likely to engage, say yes, right? We're just training. Um, we're really just building that connection with them. So I do sell throughout. Sometimes it's just maybe in a PS. Sometimes it's, like, here's the common misconceptions. What if instead, and then if you want more help on this, here's how you can work with me. I don't list like, hey, here's all my offers in the nurture sequence, more of I'm leading to a core signature offer. So a lot of times my clients have like a group program or a community they're bringing people into. So that's the ultimate goal is to get people into that community. So every single email is somehow relating to the help they're going to get in that community. The big impact that's the community is the solution to these problems that they're having. So we always bring it back to like all roads lead to the core program. And then throughout, like if you have a podcast, right? Putting in, here's my favorite episodes about this so you can learn more because that's all building trust with you. It's
Oh, good
showing your
point.
authority, it's showing your expertise. I like to put those throughout the email sequence as well. If you have different lead magnets, like you're giving them tons of value, but also giving them a chance to like know what it's like to work with you. And so often they're like, wow, I'm getting all of this for free. I wonder what it's going to be like when I actually pay her. Right. So they're just kind of, they can um, see what it's like. They can kind of see the perception of what they really want, the results that they really want by all the things you're giving them.
I love that. So when you work with your clients, you were saying already that you really get to the crux of who their avatar is, what their pain is, and so forth. Do you then, on the flip side, also have to look at their offer and the languaging within the offer to make sure that it's dialed in?
Yes, definitely. So we once we have dove into who that ideal client is and we do the market research, like that is the most important part. And sometimes I feel like people often miss that, or they just think, okay, this is what I think the problem is, and that's what we're going to go with. Or then they keep tweaking it because maybe that didn't work, and then they try again. So, point A, we start there. Um, and then we look to make sure not only does the offer match what your people want, but does it match with what you want and how you want to show up and serve your people?
Oh,
Uh, because I find that when we're really energized to show up and serve our people in the way we want to, and it's not draining us, we feel better about it. Our people get better results. It's just better all the way around. So I think diving into the offer to make sure it's what people really want, but also that it's like not stuffed with too many things, right? People aren't buying our offers because of the all of the features inside of it. They're buying it because of the result they're going to get. And so, as long as we can convey that in our messaging, that's why they're going to buy.
So, what are some of the mistakes that we do within those nurture emails or just our messaging within our email copy?
Um, I think number one is talking to too many people. So I'm going
Oh,
to go back to that like niching down. Um, it's hard. It can be really hard, but it can also be really, really powerful. So just thinking of who's that ideal client, like even focus on one person. I do this. I have my favorite client. I say her like when I write, I'm like, this is who I'm talking to.
ah,
Um, and I just write to her. And I tell my clients to do that, and it can be really powerful because then you're not like, she wants this, but she wants that, and maybe she wants this, but I don't know if she wants that, right? So it's just
yeah.
um, keeping it really honed in to the core problem and the core solution in the words that they say. That's kind of the second biggest mistake I see. How are they explaining the problem? How are they talking about it? Like super simple, clear. Like when I go back and forth with my GPT, I think this is good for everyone, but I say, make it personal, conversational, talk in seventh grade language, right? Because then it's not gonna give all the industry jargon. It's not what they want or what they know. They just know this is what's happening to me right now, and this is what I need solved. So talking to like who they want to become, that like aspirational identity.
How much do you weave stories into your messaging? And how important is that role?
hmm Um, always. So I think storytelling is important, but also so often people think storytelling has to be like, I need a beginning, middle, and end, right?
Right.
But we don't. Just like a small snip. Like I use story a lot in the hooks at the very beginning to bring people in and then relate it back to that main idea. So I think it's also like on sales pages. Like if you look at some of my sales pages, at the very end, I always tell people like write a letter to your client, write a letter to them. And like if you're still scrolling, read this before you go. You tell your story, you say, why this is so important that you join. Um, in your social posts. Like I use story everywhere because it connects on that human level. Um, so many times people aren't buying based on just logic alone. They're actually buying based on emotion. So the more that we can bring emotion into our writing and our messaging, the more powerful it's going to be.
I think people get hung up on, I know I'm the same way. It's like I can tell stories when I'm in a podcast. Um, but when it comes to the written copy, whether it's an email, landing page, whatever that may be, I never think of stories. I think I need to cut to the chase and be like, here's your problem. Here's what I'm offering. I have a
Yes.
hard time picturing how to weave that story besides like a testimonial into that copy. I just sort of get stuck.
Yes. You are not the only one. I do too, even. So, right. What I've learned in one of the books I read, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but the author gave a really good recommendation of kind of creating like a story bank. And it's not like you have to go in and write all these stories down, but just have like a spreadsheet or a note stock. Like I'm better, I just have a note stock where I just something I thought of when I was on a walk, or because most of the times that's when you're having those thoughts. Like you're on a walk, you're in the shower, you're cooking dinner, like you don't have them when you're actually sitting down to write the email. And so just keeping a note of like one sentence, what can jog your memory back to what that story was that you were thinking, or a couple sentences so that you can go back to that doc when you sit down to write your email. And if you still don't know, like, okay, well, how does this relate to what I want it to relate to? That's a really good thing to use AI for. Like, ask it, how can I relate this back to my offer? How does this tie in, right? So you have these stories that you can tie to what you're doing. Um, but if you're getting stuck, keep the note stock and then pair it with what you're doing in AI. And oftentimes it'll give you some really ideas that make the writing a heck of a lot easier.
I'd say I've never thought of doing that. That's so smart. I'm going to
It's
be doing
helped.
that now.
It's
Yeah.
helped me because yes, most of the time it's like when I'm at my walk, I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. And
Yeah.
then I don't write it down. I don't remember
Uh,
it. It's gone.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so just out of curiosity, how do people work with you? I mean, obviously you do copywriting, so I imagine you write copy for your clients, but you also have some programs, which I think is such a good opportunity for people to understand their craft and get a better understanding of their message versus just handing something over to a copywriter and getting it back. I think to have that clarity is so key. So can you just kind of dive into that just so that we can understand that this is even an option for entrepreneurs? I think it's brilliant.
Yes, definitely. So, I like to say, and I've heard this from someone else, but like you are your very own best storyteller, right? And so the better you can get at telling your story and sharing your message, everything's going to get a little bit easier. Um, and I also think it's important that we understand like most of my clients are really good writers, but it's just writing for conversion is different.
Um,
Writing to get people to see why your offer is the solution is different than just being a good writer. And so this program that I have, so of course I have my done for you where I like completely take it off your plate. I do all the writing, all the strategy, everything. But what I love about the group program is that you get access to all of my templates. So I've created frameworks and structures for sales pages, website copy, email
Saving
sequences,
time.
everything. So all you have to do is put in your ideal client, your offer, and it does the writing for you. But then I think where the important part comes is I can put all of my eyes on all of your copy. So we make sure it's saying the right thing, it has the right message, and you're learning alongside of that. I'm coaching you through it so that you can become better at it, be strong at it. You feel confident like hitting publish or saying, all right, I'm ready for this to go out. And the biggest piece I always say is like, putting the system in place so that it can work for you again and again and again. It's a one-time investment that's going to work for you for months and sometimes even years, right? With small little tweaks as you learn. Because the first time we launch, it's a learning experience. But what I don't want for my clients is to have to like launch over and over and over and over again. So we do a launch up front to validate, test our offer, and then we refine it and turn it into Evergreen so that people can always be joining our programs. They can always be joining our offers just with that simple. When you have your messaging in place and the right strategy paired with it, it's really powerful. Um,
Awesome.
yes. So it's, I think it's just helpful for people that you're moving from serving one to one to that one to many. You're building your community, your group offer, and you don't always want to have to launch it. And you want to make sure you have the right messaging in your emails, on your sales page, on your website, so that everything feels consistent. Sounds like you, and it's getting them to say yes, that I'll think about it maybe later. I don't know why this is for me, right? All those frustrating things we hear. So, yes, I'm having so much fun. I just started the program. Women are already seeing results. Like yes, would love to call in some more fabulous people who need that support because I
Yeah.
think it's important and very powerful. Like, it doesn't matter what you're selling, as long as your message is clear, people will buy.
That's good to know. Yeah. And I think like once you go through that process and you have that clarity and you dial in the messaging, all the like it just impacts every piece of your marketing, not just that one thing that you're working on. And even the language that you use when you're talking to people on podcasts or you're doing a video on social, whatever it may be, I feel like that clarity just trickles into everything.
Yes, and it helps it to be consistent
Yes. Oh
so
my
that it
God.
doesn't feel like everything is all over the place. It's all connected, all intertwined. We figure out, what's your core message? What's your core offer? How does everything align and work together? Because I don't know about you, but I have felt this where it's like I have this and that and this and that. And like it's just simplify, streamline, make sure everything is working together. And I think just one other like core piece is important that I've learned that like no matter what offer you have, right? Like I have my done for you, the program, and then I do a little audit. So there's three simple ways you can work for me. But it's the same person I'm talking to, they just might be at a different level on the continuum, right? So it's always talking to that highest level client
Yeah.
because even if it's someone that's a little like not quite there yet, they're the person that wants to be there. They have the ambition, the drive, they're ready to make that investment. Um, but if you're talking to the person that's not quite there yet, you're not going to attract them, right?
I've
Because
never thought of it that way before, but that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. So that's been really, really powerful as well.
Yeah, 100%. Such gold here, girl. Oh my God, so good.
Uh,
Yeah, I love things messaging. It's like it's creative, it's the psychology, and I love words and the strategy behind it. Like there's so much goodness. How can people find you and to work with you? And if you have a resource to share, by all means, I love helping people get on the right track.
Yes, definitely. Well, they can find me at thecopyshift.com. Or I'm on all the socials, but my last name is a little hard to spell sometimes. So the copy shift is a lot easier. I have my free resources on there. You'll find the audio summits as well that I have, and those are so powerful. There's like over 15 industry experts on there, plus myself talking about messaging, and it's all about cracking that conversion code and helping you scale without a whole lot of extra work.
Sounds good to me.
So, yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom and for explaining things in a way that we actually understand. And now we know what we need to fix to attract more clients. So thank you for that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay. I had so much fun talking with you, as always. So, thank you.
So go to the copyshift.com and get to know Hailey, connect with her and get her resources. Your templates, oh my God, they're so good. So many of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I will see you next week, folks, on the Leverager podcast show and have a good one. Bye.